Ladies and gentlemen, it's Key Time Sports coming back with another one to talk about the NFL teams with plenty to prove in the 2024 season. Now, I have 7 teams that I am going to go down a list. The first team I'm going to talk about is the New York Jets. We all know that the New York Jets last season had a revolving door at quarterback. They had Tyler Boyd at quarterback, Zach Wilson in and out of the lineup. Then you had a sputtering defense that tried to keep the team in most of the games. So now with the addition of Aaron Rodgers, he came to the Jets last year, but after 4 plays got knocked out the entire season. So this is going to be his first full season with the New York Jets. And I see quite a few concerns. Is the offensive line going to be able to hold up throughout the entirety of this season? And is Aaron Rodgers going to be the same Aaron Rodgers that we are used to seeing? Everything coming out of Jets camp is a huge question mark. And Aaron Rodgers just came out a few days ago and said that the goal for this year is to win the Super Bowl. I gotta tell you, that's every player's goal in whatever sport you in, is to win the championship. But when you look at this schedule that they have, and then not to mention if they do make it to the playoffs, you got teams that are far more better than you. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off with this schedule. Now, we know that the first game that they have is the 49ers. Then on top of that, you have the Texans, the Rams, and who knows what Buffalo is going to be this year, but you have Buffalo twice. And I'd say outside of maybe a few slip ups here and there, because this is the Jets we are talking about, so they don't have a few slip ups throughout the season. But from what I see a team that can go 10-7 and maybe win a wild card game or get to the second round of the playoffs. But all in all, they are not going to get to the Super Bowl because there are too many other good teams in the AFC. Not even mentioned, and I haven't even gotten to the Kansas City Chiefs yet. First off, if the Jets make it to the playoffs, they either going to have to face Houston, who knows, Buffalo, if they are lucky enough to get there, because I think Buffalo is going to drop this season. Then you have Baltimore. Then you have Cincinnati. Maybe, and I do mean maybe, the Colts or the Jaguars may give this team some trouble. But as of right now, I don't see the Jets getting to the Super Bowl, let alone the NFC Championship game. Because one game or another, when it comes to the playoffs, you are going to have to face the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And if Kansas City gets home field advantage throughout the playoffs this season, they automatically book them back in to the Super Bowl, because the New York Jets, the New York Jets, they haven't been to the playoffs since 2010. You know how long 2010 was? 14 years ago. Hell, I was still in elementary school. I know it don't look like it, but I was still in elementary school. It still look like I should be in school right now. But but all in all, I was in elementary school, and the coach that they had at that time was Rex Ryan. Since then, it's just been a revolving door of head coaches. First, you had Todd Bowles, didn't do anything. Then you had then now you have Robert Saleh, which he hasn't done anything. It was Todd Bowles for about 6-7 years. Then now you have Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh, this is put up or shut up for him now. because you have Aaron Rodgers at the helm. You got these elite wide receivers, got an elite running back, got an elite defense. Everything is at your disposal. Not making the playoffs, it's gonna end out. It's not gonna turn out good for Robert Saleh. Not making the playoffs. He's got to at least make the playoffs and give the New York Jets a fighting edge when it comes into the playoffs. But outside of those 5 or 6 games I see on their schedule, maybe. Now the Miami Dolphins, they are going to produce problems for the Jets too. Coming even when with them playing in New York and them playing down in Miami. So as far as the Jets, they got a tough road ahead, and they have plenty to prove this season with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. Now the next team I want to talk about is the Los Angeles Chargers. Mr. Khaki Pants himself is back in the NFL. Everybody know who I'm talking about. It's Jim Harbaugh. Now Jim Harbaugh, he's had some NFL experience prior to the hiring of his services at the LA Chargers. He was the coach of the 49ers between 2011 and 2014. The first 3 years of his coaching tenure, he got the 49ers to the NFC Championship game all 3 years, and his second year got the team to the Super Bowl, which they ultimately lost in the same place where the Super Bowl is going to be held at this year in New Orleans versus the Baltimore Ravens. So now, let's fast forward back to now. When you see the Chargers and you see their schedule, you see when I look at their schedule, automatically out the gate they are going to be 2-0. And then they are going to have some tough battles along the stretch. You got Baltimore, you got to face. You got Kansas City, you got to face twice. Then you have possibly the New Orleans Saints. Then you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they bringing back Baker Mayfield, but I believe that the Buccaneers are going to have a little bit of a drop off. But when it comes to the Chargers, I believe the Chargers, this is their best coaching staff since Norv Turner. And we all know Norv Turner, the coach Norv Turner, he can get you to the playoffs, but he couldn't win in the playoffs. Brandon Staley, the last coach, what really did it in for him is losing that 27-point lead a couple of years back in the playoffs to the Jaguars. That's what did it in for him. And then for last season, every week to go in not knowing who is going to lead the starting defense and being iffy with the play calling and stuff. I'm going to tell you something. If your head coach is not confident in his coaching staff's play calling, then he is going to be out of there. So as far as now what I see a team when it comes to the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh has rejuvenated that group and bunch, and I believe that the Chargers, they are going to be a tough outing for any team they play. When I'm looking at that fourth game of the season when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs and not San Diego Chargers, Los Angeles Chargers. When I see that game, I believe that the Kansas City Chiefs can get easily upset when it comes to that game because you got the Chargers, a young and upcoming team. You got Jim Harbaugh coming back to the NFL, making his team believe that they can beat one of the best teams, if not the best, in all of the NFL, in the Kansas City Chiefs. So for that, the LA Chargers will have a good season under Jim Harbaugh because he's got a good coaching record in the NFL, and he makes every team that he has been with, whether it's college or the NFL, he always makes them better, and he will do that with the LA Chargers this coming season. Now, the next team that has plenty to prove this coming NFL season is the Chicago Bears. Now, the Chicago Bears, when it comes to them, we all know that Caleb Williams is a budding superstar. He also has Aroma Doomsday, wide receiver. Then DeAndre Swift at the running back position. And then Keenan Allen, another dynamic wide receiver. So now, and plus Matt Eberflus, this is his third season. So now, when you look at the Chicago Bears and you see their schedule, first they start off with the Tennessee Titans. I think that's a win there. But I think when it comes to, they have a few games on their schedule where it's going to be nip and tuck. I mean, I see that game that they're going to have versus the Texans. That's going to be a tough outing. The Rams, not really sure about the Rams, but they have Sean McVay. So Sean McVay is going to come to play no matter what. And then you have Green Bay twice. Then you have Detroit twice. So all in all, I believe that in this division, the NFC North, it is going to be a 3-team race. We already know what we are going to get with the Detroit Lions, but I believe the Detroit Lions, they are going to have a drop-off this year. I really do. Because last year, nobody expected them to get to the NFC Championship game last year, and they didn't have too much player or coaching staff turnover throughout the offseason, but you always have a new team that played bad the previous season and then have that one season turnaround, make it to the playoffs, and basically can shake up the whole rankings when it comes to the NFL and going to the Super Bowl. Do I think Chicago has a chance? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to write this down. The Chicago Bears is one of the dark horse playoff teams for this season. I've already gotten that written down. I said in a reaction video a couple of weeks ago that the Chicago Bears would be, no, last week. I said in a video last week that the Chicago Bears will be a dark horse playoff team. So the tough games that I see on their schedule, I just told you, Detroit Lions twice, Green Bay Packers twice. They have the 49ers on their schedule, and they also have the Texans on their schedule. So those are 5 games that I see that they will have. It will be nip and tuck. Who knows? But maybe those games may be blowouts. And then most of those games that they have, it might be tight games. We never know. But this is the team that has plenty to prove this season because you have revamped the whole offensive line. You've revamped it, almost the coaching staff. You still have the same offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. But when you have so much talent like the Chicago Bears have now, you got to make the playoffs. And plus, you've never had a 4,000-yard passer in your 105th year history of being in the NFL. You've never had a 4,000-yard passer. I think that this year, Caleb Williams will throw for over 4,000 yards. And all in all, the Chicago Bears, they will have a good season. Will they make the playoffs? That remains to be seen. Now, the next team that has plenty to prove this coming season are the almighty Jacksonville Jaguars. A few weeks ago, Shad Khan came out and said that last season was an organizational failure. And truly it was. Starting off 8-3, 9-3, starting off, and then over the last 7 weeks to only win one game. It's like, man, it's like they had a chance to get home field advantage and have the Kansas City Chiefs coming to play them at home. But the last few games of the season, they ended on a losing streak, and they lost that last game of the season to the Tennessee Titans, and they were eliminated from the playoffs like that. So now this season, Trevor Lawrence just got a big-time contract 3 months ago, big-time contract extension. Now he needs to produce in the worst way possible, because first season, we all know that was a dumpster fire with Urban Meyer. Last season, it was a little bit iffy with him, and the season before that, they made it to the playoffs, and like I said earlier in the show, the Chargers let go of a 27-0 lead, and the Jaguars ended up winning that playoff game. So, but I see on their schedule, they have some tough games right out the gate. I mean, the first 3 games, well, mainly the first 4 games are really tough out the gate. You got Miami, you got Cleveland, you got Buffalo, and you got Houston. Now, Houston, they are going to give the Jaguars problems at home and in Jacksonville. They really are. Because when you see the Texans, they are on that same level with the Jaguars. Really, when it comes to the Texans and Jaguars, they are neck and neck. But Houston has the upper hand because they have a quarterback that does not throw interceptions all too often, because last season Trevor Lawrence, he threw 17 interceptions. 17 interceptions, and not to mention most of the interceptions that he threw, his man wasn't even in the area. So that's what we all are looking at this coming season. Can Trevor Lawrence protect the ball and not put it in harm's way? We are going to see what the Jaguars are really made of, because those first 4 games, like I said, after week 4, you know what kind of team you have. But we are going to see those first 4 games. We are going to see what the Jaguars are really made of. And not to mention, there are a few tough games that they have on their schedule on the back end. The Packers, the Eagles, the Detroit Lions, and like I said, the Texans again, December 1st. They'll be playing the Texans week 13. All 4 of those games, those four games that I just mentioned, they are within a 5-week span. So you have a gauntlet of a schedule the first month of the season, and then towards the back half of the season, you have a gauntlet of a schedule there. So the Jaguars, we are really going to see what they are made of throughout this season. And is Doug Peterson on the hot seat if he don't get the Jaguars to the playoffs this season? No. And I read an article that he might be on the hot seat, but that is just straight up not true, and that is blasphemous. How are you going to fire a coach after 3 years? I mean, we've seen that happen in the NFL. After 3 years, if a coach ain't improving the team and pushing them in the right direction, he's getting fired. But Doug Peterson, he does not have to worry about his job yet. He doesn't have to worry about his job yet. Now, 2-3 years on down the line, if he's still with this same team and can't get them over the hump, then you might have to fire him. But as of right now, this is just his third season at the helm. You don't have to fire Doug Peterson. But the Jaguars, hey, they have plenty to prove this season coming up. The next team I want to talk about is the worst team in the NFL dating back to last season, the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, we all know that they have Bryce Young. The head coach, they have a new head coach, Dave Cannons. They fired Matt Rule. And they didn't fire Matt Rule. They fired Frank Reich. They fired Frank Reich, and then they have hired Dave Canales. Now, Dave Canales, he was an offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last season and pretty much put Baker Mayfield's career back on track. Now, from what I see when it comes to the Carolina Panthers schedule, they have some very, very tough games on this schedule. They have the Saints. They already coming out with the Saints, the first game of the season. So that is going to be a tough outing. Then the following week against the Chargers, that is going to be a tough outing. Then the Bengals, a few weeks later, a tough outing. Then you have the Kansas City Chiefs, a tough outing. Then you have the Eagles later on in the season, which is a tough outing. Then you have the Dallas Cowboys late in the season, which is going to be a tough outing. So the good news is for the Carolina Panthers fans, your team has nowhere to go but up because they completely stunk up the joint last year. And then the owner, David Tepper, he didn't make it no better throwing drinks on the opposing team's fan base. So, do I think that the Carolina Panthers are going to do better this season? They will, but not substantially better. I mean, I don't see them making the playoffs now. This is just preseason that we are about to go to. Come to mention it, they have a preseason game tonight versus the Patriots. That there's no telling what can happen in the regular season, but as of right now, the Panthers, they ain't making it to the playoffs. Bryce Young, hopefully the offensive line has improved from last year because they gave up the most sacks last year. You know what? I'm going to tell y'all how many sacks that the Panthers gave up last year. It was almost an NFL record. They gave up 63 sacks last year. The Carolina Panthers gave up 63 sacks last year. Now, the record for a first-year quarterback getting sacked is 76 times with David Carr with the Houston Texans. And that was back in 2002. Can the Carolina Panthers improve? I'm sure they can improve. I mean, I got them winning like 5-6 games, and that is being very, very generous. It could be less than that, but this is before the regular season. Preseason start tonight. We gonna see how they look tonight, and then I'm gonna give y'all my reactions to all of preseason week 1 next week. Now, the last two teams I'm going to talk about, they mainly are on the same line when it comes to potential wins this season. The Cleveland Browns, and after that, I'm going to talk about the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Cleveland Browns, when it comes to Deshaun Watson, he is in the third year of a fully guaranteed contract. He really hasn't played that much throughout his contract, but when your contract is fully guaranteed, I mean, you could just sit on the bench and you still gonna get paid. But as far as their schedule, they have a tough schedule out the gate. Now, They have the Cowboys opening day. Then they have the Jaguars. Then you look on down the list, they have the Eagles in Philadelphia. Then they have the Bengals, Ravens, Chargers, Steelers, and then the Bengals. And they finish out the year with the Dolphins and the Ravens. Those are 6 games that I just mentioned that it's going to be nip and tuck. Not to mention the Pittsburgh Steelers. Both of those games are always nip and tuck when it comes to the Steelers and the Browns. Now, the offensive line for the Cleveland Browns, are they going to be better than they were last year? I expect them to be better than they were. Is the running backs going to be better than they were last year? I expect them to be better than they were. When it comes to Deshaun Watson, you got to give him time. I mean, he got sacked before he got injured. He got sacked 18 times, and he got injured in week 4. So that offensive line, they wasn't stepping up to the punch. They wasn't stepping up to the plate and protecting their quarterback. And that is why Deshaun Watson got injured so early in the season. A lot of people don't remember that the Browns gave up 18 sacks through 4 weeks of the NFL season. But when it comes to this team now, they have a better offensive line. They should do much better than they did last year. They should. But there are quite a few games that can go either way. That really can go either way. But all in all, Cleveland Browns, they are going to have a better season. Will they make the playoffs? It remains to be seen. Come back to me in about week 12, week 13, and I will tell you who will make the playoffs. The last and final team that I am going to talk about is the Miami Dolphins. Now, Tua Tagovailoa, he got a big contract extension last week, and fans are so up and at him about that. Mike McDaniel is up and at him about that. Yesterday, he was just on Dan Patrick's show talking about how the Miami Dolphins are going to be better than they were last season. Now, for a while, the Miami Dolphins had the best offense last season. And then towards the end of the season, where they had a 4-game lead with 5 games to play, they ended up losing the division. How do you lose the division when you have a 4-game lead going into the final month of the season and you end up losing the division on the last day of the regular season? But all in all, I'm going to tell you, right out the gate, Miami has a tough schedule. They got the Bills week 2. Then they have to go to Seattle. It's a 8,000. They got to travel 6,000 miles from Miami to Seattle to play a 4:00 game in week 3. Then after that, like I said, they have the Bills again. They have the Jets, and then you get to the last few weeks of the season where they have the Dolphins they have the Dolphins twice. Excuse me. The Dolphins have the Patriots twice in 3 weeks. Now I don't see nothing good from the Patriots coming this season. So the Patriots, they are at the bottom of the barrel. I'm already placing them at the bottom of the barrel along with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, back to the Miami Dolphins schedule. The last month of the season, they have the Packers, they have the Jets, they have the Texans, they have the Dolphins, they have the Browns, and then they have the Jets again. Now, that's a 6-game stretch where either they can win or lose. Do I see them making the playoffs? They should. They should, because you just extended your best wide receiver in Tyreek Hill, and you just extended Tua Tagovailoa. This year, if they make the playoffs, they got to win a playoff game, because the last 2 years they have made it to the playoffs. They didn't win. The year before last, you get to the playoff for the Miami Dolphins. You get to the playoffs and you lose to the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Last year, you get to the playoffs and you play the Kansas City Chiefs, where the temperature is 45 below zero. So we already knew that they didn't have any chance in that game. But all in all, are the Miami Dolphins going to have a good season? Yes. Where the Miami Dolphins' downfall will be is, can they win in the playoffs? And I don't think so. I don't think that they're going to be able to win in the playoffs, because you got Cincinnati, you got Baltimore, you got Houston, and you got the almighty Kansas City Chiefs that you're going to have to run into. That is if you are a wild card team and you have to play all of your games on the road. So the Miami Dolphins, they have a tough season ahead. If they make it to the playoffs, they are going to have a tougher road to get to the Super Bowl. And do I think they'll make the Super Bowl? No, because of those 4 teams that I just mentioned. And with that, that is my outlook when it comes to the 2024 NFL season, when it comes to teams with the most to prove in 2024. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, click the notification bell to get notified of all of my reaction videos, content, and also follow my other sports show on TikTok called Key City Sports. And one last thing I'm going to leave all of y'all with is, remember, the key is always on time.